Brodes Perry was a pastor of a church. He was a husband. And he was a man who enjoyed life. He was 36 years old at the time of his death. He wasn't perfect. He had flaws, much like a lot of people have flaws. In the fall of 2016, he was one of the pastors at a church in Little Rock. He knew the defendant through his role at that church. She was a member of the church, and I believe she was a leader of a life group in that church. She was going through a divorce or had recently divorced. They talked about that. A sexual relationship between the two of them began sometime around February of 2017. And you'll hear that that relationship went on until sometime the end of 2018 or maybe even going into 2019. Went on for several years. Toward the end of 2018, I believe it was around October, Mr. Perry and his wife took a job, or Mr. Perry took a job. He and his wife moved to Collierville in Shelby County because he took a job at Mississippi Boulevard Church here, also working as, I think, an executive pastor at that church. So not the senior pastor or the preaching pastor, but he was working with that church here in Shelby County. So they left Little Rock and moved here. That resulted in the relationship between the defendant and Mr. Perry became strained. He decided he didn't want to be in that relationship anymore. They lived away from each other. I don't know the reasons that he decided that, but he did when they moved back here. On April the 4th of 2019, the defendant left Little Rock. She stopped at a gun store in Sherwood, Arkansas, where she purchased a Ruger 9mm handgun, and she purchased ammunition. And she drove the 2.5 or 3 hours from there to Collierville, Tennessee, where she showed up somewhere 9, 10 o'clock that night at Mr. and Miss Perry's residence. Mr. Perry wasn't there, but Miss Perry let her in. And they sat and talked for a while, until Mr. Perry came in. Miss Perry knew the defendant from when they were in the church together in Little Rock. In fact, the two of them played tennis once a week. Miss Perry considered herself to be friends with the defendant. And so when she showed up at the door, she let her in and they talked. The defendant waited there until Brodes Perry got home. They talked for a few minutes more, and she said, "Well, I'm going to leave. Don't want to bother y'all anymore." Mr. and Miss Perry were about to walk her out the door when the defendant pulled the 9mm handgun that she had purchased 3 or 4 hours earlier. And she shot Mr. Perry multiple times. The medical examiner will testify they pulled 5 bullets out of his body. She also shot Tabatha Perry as she was kneeling beside her husband, trying to get him to quit, trying to help him, and trying to get the defendant to quit shooting. She was still on the scene with the gun when the police department arrived. You'll hear that the bullets that the medical examiner recovered from Mr. Perry's body matched the Ruger 9mm that she purchased from the gun store in Sherwood, Arkansas. TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, to analyze those, and those matched. You'll hear that the shell casings, 7, I believe, recovered from the apartment, were fired from the Ruger that she purchased from the gun store in Sherwood, Arkansas. There was a bullet recovered from the scene at the apartment that also was fired from the gun that she bought from the sporting goods store in Sherwood, Arkansas. You'll see video from the sporting goods store in Sherwood, Arkansas that shows the defendant going into the store, purchasing the ammunition and the gun, and leaving. You'll see the credit card that she purchased it with and the receipts where the last 4 of the credit card match, showing the date and the time that she purchased that handgun. She had all kinds of time to think about what she was doing. At the end of the proof, we're going to ask you to find her guilty as indicted in counts 1, 2, and 3 of the indictment. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. LaTashia Daniels is a woman who has spent her life surrounded by men who hurt women. Not all of those were physically abusive. Some were emotionally abusive. But from a very young age, LaTashia listened at night with her 2 little sisters as her father beat her mother. Her father was a minister in the church, well respected in the community. Being his daughter meant something in her town. She knew she could never tell anyone the truth about what happened behind closed doors. When LaTashia was 17 years old in high school, she got pregnant. And her father mandated that she marry. So at 17 years old, she married a man named Rodney. She and Rodney were married for a while, and then he eventually strayed in the relationship. She caught him cheating on her, and she was devastated. And that was the first time that LaTashia tried to commit suicide. She felt like she had failed her marriage, kids, her father, her family, and that they would all be better off without her. She tried to take her life. The ongoing struggle with mental health would continue throughout LaTashia's life. Her next marriage was to a man named Brian. Brian was not physically abusive. But very shortly after LaTashia and Brian got married, he completely shut her out emotionally. When she would come home, she would sit in the parking lot or the driveway and cry. Because she knew when she walked into that house, a house that is supposed to be a home filled with love and filled with comfort and acceptance, she would get. Her husband would sit on the couch and watch TV and would sit on the couch. And that went on for 8 years. And at a certain point, LaTashia found herself so starved for love and for attention that she sought out counseling. She tried to get her husband to go with her to marriage counseling, and he wouldn't. So LaTashia decided that she needed spiritual guidance. She needed to know that if she was going to be getting divorced, that she could find that amends with God for another marriage failing. Now, Brodes Perry was an assistant pastor at St. Mark's Baptist Church in Little Rock, one of the biggest Baptist churches in Little Rock. He was one of the pastors that selected, among the thousands of church members, selected about 40 people to be life group leaders. LaTashia was one of those people selected. And the group that she was in was one of about 7 or 8 people that Brodes Perry was directly over. And they had a very close, tight-knit group. Brodes Perry took very particular interest in his group. And while LaTashia was struggling, seeking this spiritual covering, she reached out to Pastor Perry because she trusted him. She felt like she could be safe talking to him. She did not seek him out for a relationship. They met, had a counseling session where LaTashia poured her heart out to him for almost 2 hours in tears, talking about the complete emotional neglect, the lack of love, the lack of attention, and how it made her feel in the marriage that she was currently in. And Pastor Perry listened, but seemed distracted to LaTashia. Several weeks had passed and she was still struggling with these feelings, and so she reached out for a second session. And when she talked to Pastor Perry at the beginning, she said, "I appreciate you meeting with me, but I don't understand why when we met, you had your hands shoved in your jacket the whole time I was talking to you." Pastor Perry told her that he was doing that so that he could maintain his professionalism. As she was pouring her heart out to him, all he could do was think about sleeping with her. And when this counseling session started, within minutes, he grabbed her chair, pulled her to him, and began kissing her. And this woman who had been so starved for love and affection was finally receiving it. She did not seek it out, but she was receiving it. And that session that was supposed to be counseling her through her divorce became the first time that LaTashia Daniels and Brodes Perry had sex. Immediately after that, Brodes Perry and LaTashia started a relationship. But there were rules to be in a relationship with Brodes Perry. She immediately had to download the Confide app. Confide is similar to a Snapchat, where you open the message, you read it, and it disappears, and it's gone forever. That was the only means of communication that she was allowed to have with him, through that app. Brodes Perry traveled with the church. Pastors sometimes have their trips. Church groups have their trips. LaTashia was to go on those trips. She had to pay her own way. He could not have his credit card tied with her flights. She was expected to be there. And while they were on trips, they would stay together in a hotel room. If LaTashia was inside the hotel room, she was required to be naked. no matter what. She was inside that hotel room. And if she had the audacity to put on clothing inside a hotel room, he would get angry with her. He went so far as to say, if we are ever together and I am suffering from a medical emergency, do not call 911. You call Pastor Pointer. He will get me help. You don't do it. You get as far away from me as you need to get for nobody to find out about this. By the end of their relationship, one of the rules was that LaTashia was required to answer him with either yes, sir, or no, sir. Brodes had a lot of rules. LaTashia had fallen so deeply in love with him after being so starved in her past relationship that she was willing to follow him. She was willing to do whatever he wanted her to do because he loved her. She loved him. There was a lot of guilt and a lot of shame around this relationship, though, because she knew that he was married. Now, she was in the process of a divorce, but she knew Tabatha. Brodes was interested in a unique lifestyle, something called ethical non-monogamy. Basically, what ethical non-monogamy teaches is that as long as everyone in the relationship is informed and honest, that even from a marriage, you can have extramarital relationships. Brodes told LaTashia this is a lifestyle that he wanted, and that Tabatha would allow him to have it. She was willing to let him engage in this ethical non-monogamy. And Brodes told LaTashia, you and Tabatha will be sister wives. You will live with us. We will have a life together. I just haven't told her. But I will. But I will. And so despite the shame and the guilt from this relationship, LaTashia proceeded with the affair. As part of this ethical non-monogamy, Brodes had a chat group. And it all started around this book that is kind of the guidebook for ethical non-monogamy. The book is called The Ethical Slut. Brodes made LaTashia read that book because it outlined what he was allowed to do. In the big group chats about this book, Brodes developed this kind of side chat that was with him and two other women, where they discussed their ethical non-monogamy. Hours and hours and hours, Brodes talked to them via video about how Tabatha was on board with his ethical non-monogamy. So much that when he said, okay, I want to do this, Tabatha said, you should do it with LaTashia. She's your person. Let me talk to her. I'll break the ice. Tabatha selected LaTashia, is what Brodes was telling the other women in this group. And that Tabatha was completely on board because he was being so honest and so open and so truthful with her, that he was so honest that not only could he have LaTashia, he could have another woman too. He talked about these conversations that Tabatha would have with LaTashia, the role that she played in their relationship. How idea that her husband was in this relationship for 2 years. Despite the fact that he was telling these women that she was completely on board and involved. And despite the fact that he was telling LaTashia that she was on board with this lifestyle and that it would be okay. They would all be able to do this together. And so the relationship goes on. They take trips. LaTashia buys him lavish gifts. They are happy. They see each other almost every day. They start drinking bourbon together. They start going to cigar lounges together. They start biking together, join a biking group. They would run together. Full relationship. That LaTashia thought Tabatha had thanked her, even though she didn't know that. And towards the end of 2018, Brodes Perry got offered a position at Mississippi Boulevard Baptist Church here in Memphis. It's a big church here in Memphis. It's a prestigious church to be a pastor at here in Memphis. And Brodes talked to LaTashia about whether he should accept this offer, and she said, yes, this is a huge opportunity, absolutely. She organized the going away party for him and Tabatha. After Brodes moved in October of 2018, he would come back to Little Rock. He still had his orthodontist in Little Rock, so he'd come back to get his braces tightened. And when he would come in town, he and LaTashia would pick up where they left off. But things did start to change in the way Brodes was treating her. And around March the 15th, Brodes came in town and texted LaTashia, I'm here at the hotel, come meet me. So she went. And on this day, she had the audacity to be wearing clothes when he walked in. He got very angry with her. And she apologized. And they proceeded to have sex. This was not a day that they made love. This is a day that he had sex with her. He was demeaning and degrading, borderline aggressive with her, which is something that he had never done before. Pulling her hair, shoving himself into her mouth, hurting her, slapping her. Nothing that she had ever experienced with him before. She felt so used and humiliated and broken by that experience with him, this man that she loved so much and had put so much of her life into, for him to treat her like a piece of trash. Broke her heart. And that became the second time that she attempted to commit suicide. The next day, she came back to the hotel room with a gun. She told him, you hurt me so bad. I want you to hurt like I hurt. And she wanted to kill herself in front of him so that he knew what it felt like to break because of somebody that you say that you love. He got the gun away from her, and they talked. Brodes always knew what to say to LaTashia to get her to do what he wanted. He went on that day. She did not kill herself. But she was still broken. They took some time apart, still talking on the phone, but not seeing each other in person. And on April the 4th, LaTashia of 2019, LaTashia opened her Confide app and saw a message from Brodes. It said something to the effect of, "Our time has come to an end." And it disappeared. He ended their 2-year relationship that was supposed to be a life with a disappearing cat. And Natasha said, "I was right to want to die." And she found herself so deep down in that dark hole that God could not reach her. She didn't think that she deserved for God to reach her. She didn't have a gun anymore because Brodes had taken hers. Around 3 o'clock that afternoon, she wrote a letter to her family and left it for them in her phone. She told them goodbye. She told them that she was sorry. She knows that they will do better without her. Her life is not. They would do better without her. And around 4 o'clock that afternoon, she didn't even take her purse with her to that gun store. She took her license and a debit card. She went and bought a gun to end her life. She had chosen a place that was of significance to her to go and commit suicide. It was in Jacksonville, Arkansas, Johnson Park. And as she was driving down the interstate, she just kept thinking, if I could just see him, if I could just talk to him, he would understand. We can be okay again. This doesn't have to happen. I need to see him one more time. Even if this is where this goes, I just need to see him one more time. And she looked up and saw the exit to Memphis. And she turned around. She found herself in downtown Memphis, which is a place that she is not accustomed to. But she knew, because they were such regular communicators, she knew that on Thursday nights, Brodes would be at the cigar lounge. So she went to the cigar lounge. As she was walking up, Brodes walked out. She knows her rules. You do not approach him. She was not allowed to approach him because she didn't know if he was with somebody. He had to approach her so that she knew that she could talk to him. So she sees him and walks directly past him and waited for him to say, "LaTashia." When he did that, she came back and talked to him. And they talked for a while. She was telling him how heartbroken she was. And he said, "It doesn't make any sense that my wife is okay with me having other women, but my girlfriend isn't." And she said, I'll be okay with it. You can do it. If that will fix it, I will do that. We'll give you that. And just like she had so many times in this relationship with him pressuring her to get a watcher or to have a threesome or to engage in this ethical non-monogamy, she gave in. Because she loved him so much that she was willing to do whatever she had to do to keep him. And he said, "You haven't been willing to do that so far." She said, well, you haven't even told Tabatha about this. You know, how can I think that you're going to be honest with me when you haven't even told her? And so Brodes said, fine. You want to tell her? We'll go tell her. Go to my apartment. Talk to her about tennis. Tell her you're in town for a convention. I've got to run an errand to Pastor Turner's house. I'll be there soon. You go tell her. LaTashia said, no, you need to be the one to tell her. I'll be there. I'll go there. But we need to tell her together. And so LaTashia went to their apartment, where she had never been before. He gave her the address. He had actually given it to her before they even moved out of Little Rock. And so LaTashia arrives at this apartment complex that she's never been to at night. She's not from here. She doesn't frequent Memphis. She doesn't know the difference between downtown Memphis and Collierville. She just knows it was dark outside. And she had to walk from her car to the apartment. And as she's sitting in her car, she starts having second thoughts. And she calls Brodes. She says, are you sure we should do this? I'm scared. Because she had so much hope at this point. She thought that things were finally falling into place, that they were finally going to tell Tabatha. They would finally be able to be openly and honestly together. And Brodes didn't answer. So LaTashia went to the apartment, softly knocked on the door. Tabatha was inside, and she heard something but ignored it. So a couple seconds later, a little bit louder. So Tabatha gets up and goes to investigate, see who's at her door. She looks through the peephole and doesn't see anything. Talking through the door, she says, you know I'm not going to open this door unless I can see you, right? And at that point, LaTashia kind of put herself into the frame of the peephole. And Tabatha says, LaTashia, is that you? She opens the door, gives Tasha a hug, invites her in. And they talk about tennis, and they talk about her being in town for a conference. And they sit in the living room and chat. Brodes comes home a little while later, walks in, and Tabatha texted him while she and LaTashia were talking, said, I've got a surprise for you. And so he walked in, and he just said, that wasn't the surprise I was expecting. It seemed very distant. So he sits, kind of makes some awkward conversation with LaTashia, small talk, but he won't look at her. He will not acknowledge the elephant that LaTashia knows is in the room. He offers her some bourbon. She says, sure. Tabatha said no because she had been drinking earlier in the day, so she didn't want any more. And Brodes poured himself some. And they chatted for a few more minutes, but Brodes really started completely ignoring LaTashia there. And she saw the writing on the wall that this wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to tell her. And so she said, you know what, I'm not going to keep going. But she wanted to talk to him. She wanted to find out why. She said, Brodes, walk in my car. Southern hospitality, you're the man. You know, will you walk me to my car? He said, no, Tabatha will walk you out. She said, no. Be a gentleman, walk me to my car. And he said, no, Tab will do it. So Tab got up, started walking out. She did not even understand the enormity of that moment behind her. When he wouldn't even walk outside and take a moment to talk to her. She put her hands in her pocket, and she felt the gun that was in there as she was reaching for her keys. She did not think about what was happening. This was not what she came there to do. In that moment, she broke. And she did shoot Brodes Perry. While screaming, "He broke my heart." And Tabatha ran to shield him and jumped in front of him. And that is when she got struck in the shoulder. And Tabatha said to her, "LaTashia, you shot me." And LaTashia said, "No, I didn't." She said, "Yes, you did. You shot me." And LaTashia said, "I didn't mean to shoot you." And Tabatha said, "Just go, leave. The police are on their way. Just go." Because Tabatha, when all this started, was already outside. She ran to the neighbor's house, knocked on the door, and said, "Call 911," and then ran back in. LaTashia had never threatened her, never tried to shoot her, nothing. This was a moment that broke between LaTashia and Brodes. But it was not a moment of cool, calm judgment. It is not what that night was supposed to be. That night was supposed to be a start, not an end. But that night, she broke. And she lived with that every day. And it hurts her. She feels shame about what happened. To visit her hands with him. This was not judgment and correction. This was a break. And when the police came, their guns drawn, yelling at her to put down the gun, she didn't even register them. They didn't respond to them. Tabatha said that she was bringing the gun to her head, towards her mouth, not even acknowledging the police. And in assessing the situation, police determined that they should use a non-lethal round. And they shot LaTashia in the chest with that non-lethal round. She was thrown to the ground. Did not. The police did not choose to use their firearms. They chose to use a non-lethal round. They actually tried to use a non-lethal round first and the gun jammed. They ran down to their car and ran back up with another non-lethal round. No other shots were fired in that entire time. This was not what this night was supposed to be.
State, you may call your first witness.
State calls Tabatha Perry, Your Honor.
The doors approach. We'll take a short recess, okay, and then we'll reconvene, okay?
Court stand in brief recess. Jury leave your pen and pads in the chair and follow me.
just stand right here, face the judge, raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear affirm to tell the whole truth? All right, you may have a seat.
Would you state your name, please? And can you spell that for the court reporter?
Tabatha
And Miss Archie, did you know Brodes Perry? And can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you knew him? And was he your husband?
Can I get you to speak up? Explain like you're trying to reach the back door. She's recording everything, so we want to make sure we get everything you say.
When were y'all married?
2014, February 2014.
And were you married to him in April of 2019 when he died?
Yes.
How old was he at that time?
38?
I'm gonna pass you something and ask you if you can identify it. Can you identify that?
Yeah, that's Brodes Perry.
Judge, I'd ask that be marked. State's Exhibit 1, please.
No objection.
We'll show the photo of Brodes Perry as Exhibit 1.
May I publish that for the jury?
Yes.
Is that the photo you used to identify?
Yes.
When's the last time you talked to him?
April
4th,
4th, 2019.
2019. And that's the day he died.
Correct.
Were you there when that happened?
Yes.
Where were y'all living at the time?
Collierville, Tennessee.
How long had y'all been in Shelby County?
Approximately 6 months.
Where were you before that?
Little Rock, Arkansas.
And what did Mr. Perry do as his occupation?
He was a pastor.
And is that what he did in Little Rock as well?
Yes.
Where was he at Little Rock? Where was he a pastor at?
St. Mark Baptist Church.
And do you know, is that a big church?
Yeah, it's a big church.
They have a lot of pastors.
Yes.
What was his role as a pastor there?
He was the pastor of assimilation. So his responsibility was basically new members as well as small groups.
Did he do any counseling or anything at that church?
No.
I want to take you specifically to April 4th of 2019. And that night, 9 or 10 o'clock at night, where were you?
I was home.
And was Brodes there with you?
No, he was not.
Did you have a visitor?
I did.
Was it an expected visitor or an unexpected visitor?
Unexpected.
Kind of tell me how that went.
I heard a knock at the door. So me and the dog went to the door. I didn't see anyone. Well, the people was covered. And so I thought it was Brodes just playing around. So I'm like, I said something like, I'm not gonna open the door if I can't see anyone. So I went and sat back down. And I heard a knock again, so I went back to the door. And I peeked out the door, and I saw like a lock, like swinging. And I was like, Tasha, is that you? And she, nodded, yeah. So I was like, okay, let me put the dog up. I went and put the dog up, and then I came back and opened the door.
Okay. So you knew LaTashia Daniels.
Yes.
Is she in the courtroom today?
Yes,
Can you point her out for us, please?
right there.
What color shirt she wearing?
Blue,
Light blue or dark blue?
light blue.
For the record, Judge, she's identified the defendant.
We'll let the record reflect the defendant has been identified.
How would you describe your relationship with the defendant?
Friendly.
Okay. You knew her, you may have said this, where did you know her from?
I knew her from church.
in Memphis or Little Rock?
in Little Rock.
Did y'all do other things together outside of church?
I would say from maybe July to October, we played tennis together like once a month. I went to a couple dance classes. I think she had a former client who taught dance, so I went to a couple dance classes, or my life group would go with her life group to a couple dance classes.
So it was somebody you knew from church, somebody you knew from some events at church, somebody you played tennis with occasionally, so you knew her fairly well, would you say that?
Yeah.
I mean, what did you think when she just showed up? Did you have any idea she knew where you lived, or?
I knew that it was odd. I felt like it was odd, but I guess it was one of those things where, you know, it's like, this is weird, but okay. You know, I knew that before we left Little Rock, we gave a lot of people our address, you know, a lot of people, you know, keep in contact, you know, give me your forwarding address, that type of thing. So I really didn't allow myself to really think past that. I just figured, oh, we must have given her our address.
So it wouldn't have been unusual for somebody from the church in Little Rock to know where you were in Memphis?
Wouldn't be unusual, no.
Did you ask her what she was doing?
Yeah, I asked her what she was doing there, and she said that she was in town for a conference.
So what y'all do after you
I invited her-
welcomed her in, and
Yeah.
what happened then?
I invited her in, and we just sat on the couch and just kind of caught up. You know, how are you? What's going on? How are the kids? You know, have you been playing tennis? Stuff like that. Just really small talk.
Did you notify Mr. Perry that she was there?
I texted him, and I just, you know, gave like the big eyeballs, and I was like, I either said weird or strange or something like that. But I didn't go into detail to tell him what was going on or that she was there.
Did you ask him to come home if he was available to come home?
No, because I knew he was already on the way home.
Okay, so you had, I guess, had a conversation with him by phone, text, or something, and so you had an idea he was coming home.
Yeah.
How long do you think that she was there prior to Mr. Perry getting home? Approximately, I mean, it's not 5 minutes, 30 minutes, I don't know.
If I had to guess, I would say maybe 10 minutes.
Okay.
I don't know.
And kind of describe what happened when Mr. Perry came in the door.
He came in, and he's like, I thought there was a surprise here for me. This isn't a surprise. This is an unexpected guest. You know, real agitated.
Did he seem to know that she would be there?
No, he didn't give away to me that he thought she would be there. So he said that, and then he was, you know, telling me about, he had brought me some aminos or something, and just regular small talk, and then he sat down and started basically grilling her about why she was there.
Okay. And how long did y'all continue to have conversation after that?
Yeah, but it
Anything to
was,
eat, drink, anything like that?
I think they may have had bourbon. I didn't have any. I think that, I'm pretty sure he offered bourbon. Yeah,
How long would you say that she stayed?
after he got there.
After he got there.
Maybe another 10 minutes.
And what happened?
She said, well, I'm not gonna keep you guys. I'm gonna, head out or whatever. So we all got up to walk to the door, and I led, and she was behind me and he was behind her. And I walked to the door, and I'm just giving this little spiel about not speeding in the area, just making small talk as we go to the door. I open the door and I go out. We're on the second floor. And I'm like right at the steps when I turn back, and I'm like, okay, no one's behind me. And then I see her pull out her gun and start shooting.
Was she inside of the apartment or outside?
No, she was outside of the apartment, and he was like standing in the doorway, like in the threshold.
Had she ever, since she got there and you let her in, had she left the apartment to go back to her car or anything?
No,
So she had brought the gun in with her when she came into the apartment?
yes.
So when she pulled the gun out, what happened next?
She started shooting, he hit the ground, and I started running toward him, and she told me, like, basically back off. So I stopped and I ran to the neighbor's door and I banged on the door, called 911. She went back into the apartment, so I went back into the apartment because I'm just trying to figure out what is going on. Like, why is this happening? So I'm, screaming naturally, why is this happening? What's happening? Why are you doing this?
So do you think your neighbor called 911 at that point?
One of them did. Somebody called.
When you got back into the apartment, did the defendant still have the gun in her hand?
Yes.
And what was going on then?
I guess at that point, I'm basically pleading, like, what's happening? Why are you doing this? Please leave, and she's, kind of pacing a little bit, with the gun. At some point, the gun was reloaded.
So she fired until she ran out of bullets?
Mhm.
Were you ever shot?
I was shot.
Tell me about that. When did that happen? Where were you?
Well, at some point I got on the ground, and I can't remember if I got on the ground immediately, but I was on the ground and I was kind of hovering over him, kind of in my mind. I'm like, let me cover his head, so he doesn't get shot anymore. And, she was yelling at me to move, and I wouldn't move. So I got shot
Where'd you get shot?
in the shoulder.
Tell me about those injuries. Where and how were you treated? What have you had to deal with since being shot?
So it went into the shoulder, it broke this bone, and, so at the emergency room, they decided that they wouldn't remove the bullet because,
No, take your time.
they felt like it wasn't gonna move, so they just didn't remove it. But when I got to Jacksonville, I know that's home, Florida, I went back home, and they noticed that the bullet had started moving, so the first doctor I went to was like, this bullet is too close to your lung, so, it's gonna have to go. And first I went to the orthopedic doctor, then I went to another doctor, and they decided to just remove it, and by the time it was removed, it was coming out of my back, so the bullet had punctured the skin and was poking out of my back, so I had to have it surgically removed.
So did that cause you a lot of pain the night you were shot?
Yes.
A lot of pain between being shot and having the bullet removed?
A lot of pain.
And then the surgery was also not comfortable, I'm guessing, as well?
Right, and then the shoulder is still broke on top of that. The bone
Still.
here is, it was still broke the whole time, so there was the bone healing on top of the surgery and everything else.
Does it still cause you pain even today?
Sometimes, depending on what I'm doing, I'll get like a sharp pain.
There is, we've talked about this since, but, and I don't know, do you dispute the fact that Mr. Perry and the defendant were involved in a extramarital affair at the time this happened?
I don't now, no.
Prior to Mr. Perry's death, did you have any idea that the defendant and Mr. Perry were involved in any kind of an inappropriate relationship?
No.
Did Mr. Perry at any time have any conversation with you about he would like to have a relationship with LaTashia Daniels?
No.
Did he at any time have a conversation with you about he wanted to have a relationship with anyone other than you, a sexual relationship with anyone other than you?
One time he told me about a book that he wanted me to read.
Right.
That was about the extent of it.
Is a marriage where you would agree to allow your spouse to have a sexual relationship with somebody else, anything that you would ever agree to?
No,
And by saying that, does that mean you never agreed to that with Mr. Perry?
I did not.
And you had no idea anything like that was going on?
I did not.
when you were on the ground trying to protect Mr. Perry, and I think you testified to this, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say that the defendant was telling you to move,
Yes,
and you refused to move,
yes,
and that's when you were shot?
correct.
That's all.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I have just a moment to get tech situated?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Archie, please, I apologize if I defer to Perry, because that was just what I've known you as. Please feel free to correct me, okay? I want to talk to you about some things regarding this case, okay? First, I want to talk about ethical non-monogamy. Okay? When you were on direct, you told Mr. McAlbin that there was a book he wanted you to read. That book was called The Ethical Slut.
I guess. I don't think I ever considered it enough to know the name, but I guess.
And that was something that he was interested in and brought to your attention.
Right. He told me about this book. Hey, I read this book. I think you should read it.
Did he tell you what it was about?
I think I've gathered what it was about, yeah.
What did you gather it was about?
I gathered that it was about people who are in open marriages.
And is that something that you were interested in?
No.
Now, there was an ethical non-monogamy group that Brodes was in, right? His book club.
Right, apparently so.
And did you know about the chat group that he had with 2 other women regarding that book?
Not at the time. This is something I learned about maybe 2 years after his death. I knew that he was in a book club. I didn't know what kind of book club it was. To know Brodes, to know that he's very, very much a nerd. I would say after he died, I probably gave away 1,000 books. So to say I'm in a book club didn't seem out of the ordinary to me.
So, did you know that he was on this, and this was on the Marco Polo app that he was talking to these women, right? Did you know that he was talking to people on that app?
I did know, because I asked him, why are you always on this app? And he said, well, you know, I'm in that book club, and instead of constantly typing back and forth, we just get on the video and chat about the books that we're reading.
And you saw him on there a lot?
Like, you know, when you log on, you can see who else is on. So I'm like, why are you always on the app?
Did Brodes ever talk to you about bringing a watcher into your relationship?
No,
Did he ever talk to you about Ms. Daniels being a watcher in your relationship?
No.
Did he ever talk to you about wanting to have a girlfriend outside of having you as his wife?
no,
Did you select Ms. Daniels for Brodes to have a relationship?
no.
I'd like to show you some videos, okay? And it will be clips mostly. And then I'm gonna ask you some questions about those clips, okay?
They told you these stories didn't exist. We're here to prove they do. Real footage, real crimes. No filter. For more true crime from the South, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel at Southern Sin. You can also support more episodes by becoming a member of the Southern Sin channel, where you'll get early, exclusive access to crimes that mainstream media won't show you. Tune in for all new episodes every True Crime Tuesday at 9 p.m.